Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the official campaign period is drawing to a close at midnight tonight. Hence, candidates contesting in Thursday's by-elections are making final appeals to voters in the various electoral units that will be hosting by-elections. And of course, we've seen high-octane campaigns over the last few weeks. A total of 24 electoral units will be involved in the by-election. 1 Senate seat in Baringo, 6 National Assembly seats are to be contested in this by-election from Banisa, Kasipul, Magarini, Malava, Mbere North to Ugunja, and we have 17 members of county assembly positions that are up for grabs in Thursday's mini polls. IEBC on its part has confirmed that logistical preparations are on track, mentioning that distribution of ballot materials and deployment of polling staff is up to date. And of course, most of these by-elections have been viewed as high stakes, a do or die affair for either the broad-based side or the united opposition. And we're set to evaluate the by-election intricacies and what the results will actually mean for Kenya's political landscape 1 year and 8 months and some change to the 2027 general election. Allow me to introduce my guest. Benji Ndolo joins me in studio. He's a seasoned political analyst and commentator. Benji, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Karibu sana.
It is so good to see you, Jesse. You work for the media house that we call the Standard Injection Group. Or newspaper.
Okay, welcome to the Standard
Because you guys
Injection.
are just injecting.
Well, we're doing our due diligence as members of the Fourth Estate.
The last line of defense.
Exactly.
It's important.
Asante sana for your time.
Thank
Karibu
you.
to our studios.
Thank you very much.
We'll equally be joined by Alenga Torosted, who's joining us virtually. He's a political and governance analyst. Alenga, it's a pleasure to have you with us as well. Looking forward to your analysis. Now, gentlemen, the outcome of this 27th by-election is promising to act as a barometer for President Ruto's choosing in terms of choosing strategic partners going into the 2027 general election and the pre-election power sharing deal. So, Benji, I'd like to begin with you. How exactly do you foresee the outcome of this mini polls? Will it be a litmus test, truly, for how Kenyans will vote come 2027?
Well, thank you once again, Jesse, and good evening to all our viewers. I think that's my camera on the left there,
Yes,
number
yes,
2.
Yeah.
I have noticed today, the entire day, across FM stations, across rival TV stations, the topic has been these by-elections, the credibility of the newly constituted IEBC, and whether or not this is a litmus test and a precursor to 2027. And the truth is twofold. Number one, Jesse, by-elections are, by definition, very unique and different animals. A by-election usually is not a very big deal because traditionally by-elections happen on a day when it is not really a holiday, it is not really a special day, so to speak. People go to work, people go on their, various different programs. And in fact, a lot of constituents, many a time, are not tuned in to a by-election because, in a sense, it's a special election. It's not the general election. Yeah. And so many a time, a by-election is not a very good opportunity to get a synopsis of what the election should look like. However, in this particular instance, and this is probably a bad sign for the government, there's a lot of interest in these by-elections. That should be a bit worrisome for the government. There's a lot of allegations about these by-elections. For example, there is also a lot of expenditure. And expenditure would be more on the side of government. So you have to ask yourself, Jesse, as a political scientist, as a journalist, as an analyst, what is so big in Magarini, in Mbere North, in Kasipul, that money is being splashed and choppers are flying all over? And so the truth is that there's a restlessness on the ground. There's also a sourness, a souring towards government. that I believe President Ruto has this agenda that he keeps talking about. You know, we want to make Kenya to be like Malaysia and Singapore. But I'm not sure if it's the communications or if it's the inability to actually deliver in the way that Kenyans expect that is really causing the interest, not just for interest's sake, Jesse, but also so that many of them hope that the government is defeated. And so in so doing, send a strong warning shot to the government that people are dissatisfied, are unhappy, and therefore expect that the campaign one term for 2027 can actually be real. This is why you see this kind of interest. But suffice to say, Thursday will be hectic. And you can expect that the government will, if they don't lose, certainly they'll be given a run for their money.
Okay, it's definitely high stakes, as we've mentioned time and time again. There are up to 24 seats that are up for grabs. And Benji, what seat is of most strategic importance to either side? Let's start with the broad-based government. What seat can they afford to lose? Be it ODM, be it UDA?
I think Kasipul seat is a very problematic seat. It carries a lot of baggage. You remember the owner of that seat, Were, was assassinated, was gunned down. There's a lot of allegations on his character and conduct. His son is trying to succeed him. That campaign is led by the chair of ODM, Gladys Wanga. ODM is itself literally almost on fire because the daughter of the late Raila is in the same camp that is saying all these unsavory things about the handshake with government. On the other side, the new party leader is kind of wavering. As well, the Secretary General is, you've got at least 3 or 4 divergent views, loud divergent views inside the party. And this is a party that has just celebrated its 20th birthday, of which the chief guest was His Excellency the President, who is a founder member of that party but doesn't belong in that party. You can just see how messy our politics is. And that's why I keep making the point that we have to somehow, in the long run, change how we do our politics. And so losing that one would be very problematic. Mbeere North is another one. The deputy president is running the campaign in Mbeere North against the immediate former deputy president. Now, there's issues there on credibility, on political weight, on political muscle, on system muscle, on authenticity. Who really has the mountain? How do they have the mountain? We know what is the rationale behind this. And so that's another one, Magarini as well. And so at best, you have a very noisy affair in 2025. And I guess what is bothersome as well, Jesse, you wonder as a professional, with this type of politics, and the worst part about it is the vindictive, ego-driven, you know, I don't want to use the word malice, but vendetta-driven type of politics here, where, you know, there are a few big guys that are literally in a dick measuring contest. You know, when then do we get to do the actual business of the people? When do you get to do things that implement the Constitution, that create jobs, that enhance proper, good, and fair government policy, that then alleviate poverty? That's always my problem as a social activist, as a human rights activist, as a good governance advocate. Just ask myself, you know, if this is, I think you saw the news today, Rigathi Gachagua today, I mean, he could have lost his life. You know, worst case. I mean, they were under fire. Same with Governor Natembeya just a few days ago. You know, how sustainable is this kind of politics? It mimics what we saw in Tanzania. My brother, how sustainable is that? I mean, even if you do that and you become a governor or the president, you know, what are you the president of? And so these are questions we must ask ourselves as Africans. I see you have a striking resemblance, by the way, with Malcolm X. And if you've read his books or looked at any of his movies, these are black men that had a real commitment and vision to what it is to be a black person. You know, what is the role and the position of a black person in America in the 1960s that led to the civil rights movement? How should you fight for rights? Is it the Martin Luther King way? Is it the Malcolm X way? And so I'm just encouraging you and the audience to say that on top of the drama, on top of the entertainment, on top of the handouts, we must ask ourselves, how are counties and how is devolution to work? If we don't get serious about how we go about the business of choosing leaders, so that we're choosing leaders and not clowns. And just as I, hand back so that you can give Alenga, my other brother, a chance, your own paper ran a very credible story on one of the candidates in Barrie North, who's a fraudster, I'm not afraid to say it, who's had a lot of cases in court and who's actually changed his identity. We saw the same thing with the guy in Kiambu, Paul Kimani, who actually also allegedly had filed a death certificate and now goes by Kimani Wamatangi. I'm making the point that there's a willful subversion of the Constitution. That you as a party leader, this guy comes and you know very well that he is not eligible, that he's violating Chapter 6, that he's violating the spirit and the letter of the Constitution of Kenya that we passed in 2010.
Yeah.
You cannot then pet a snake and then turn around and say, the snake bit me. This is the problem with our politics. And until we get serious about obedience and upholding the Constitution and putting the right guys forward for office, and then even having those guys try to actualize, for instance, the president's ambitious agenda, you're going to always have a shortfall even of trust with the people. And that's very problematic.
Okay,
Yes.
and we'll get to Marty's IEBC because many are saying this is the litmus test in terms of whether IEBC will retain, and retain the public's credibility. Let's engage Alenga Toristed, who's joining us virtually. Alenga, I'm curious, from where you sit, how crucial is this by-election slated for Thursday for both the broad-based government and the united opposition? Some say it's the first real test for the united opposition, and others say this will bring the broad-based government to realities of the times post-Raila Odinga. How crucial is Thursday's mini polls from where you sit?
Thank you very much, Rogers. I am joining you from the county of Vihiga, and I think by-elections, by and large, reflect a lot on the way the people feel about the government that is in the reins of power. As it were, at the moment, by-elections are coming, and specifically this one is coming after a new government of William Ruto has been in power for close to 3 years, and then it gives Kenyans ample time to have judged whether this new kid will be a good child in the homestead or has been a wreck and a disappointment to the parents and the community. And as it were, we might say prediction that at the moment, many Kenyans feel cheated, many Kenyans feel disappointed in the superfluous manifestos that they were sold. And these by-elections then offer a very important moment for Kenyans to perhaps punish the regime for what they have done to them. So on my part, I think largely the government is going to be beaten through these by-elections by the people, just to express how they feel about the government of the day. Number two, I think the ODM party stands to also receive an equal beating in these by-elections as a consequence for joining the Kenya Kwanza regime that was not treating Kenyans in the right way. Remember, this union between the ODM party and the ruling party, which they called the broad-based government, came fast in the heel of killings of young people, abductions of young people, the torture of young people, the loss of lives, the blatant shooting of young people on the streets of Nairobi in the Gen Z revolution of 2024. So therefore, it is a union that did not have the blessings of many Kenyans from different sections. And therefore, in these by-elections, then ODM party will receive a beating for having entered in an unholy union to continuously suppress Kenyans. So I think two casualties will arise from this by-election: the ruling party and their clandestine partner ODM. So these by-elections will have a very huge demonstration of where the faith of Kenyans stands in terms of who is governing them at the moment. Also, another point that we might want to look at is these by-elections will be a moment for the new IEBC commissioners and chair to demonstrate that they have the ability to stand and give Kenyans a free and fair election come 2027. So they have a very huge litmus paper that stands before them to demonstrate that indeed they can rise above partisan politics. Indeed, they can rise above tribal politics. And indeed, they can rise above the whimsical hand of the offer an opportunity for us to trust the process. Then it will build it will build a platform upon which Kenyans will trust that the election of 2027 will be a fair one. So the IEBC has a very big card to play in these elections, same as the many other parties. And also, more importantly, it will also be a demonstration of who Rigathi Gachagua is, because you understand that he has a party that is now participating in these elections, the DCP party. So the outcomes that comes out of this election will also speak volumes about the political strength of Rigathi Gachagua. And then it could also just demonstrate to us how much of a headache or is going to be in the next election, or if he's not going to be a threat at all.
Okay, well, you know what they say, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. Exactly. So we'll get to see this Thursday. But since he spoke of Rigathi Gachagua, Benji, what exactly is at stake here for the DCP party leader? Number one, the first electoral contest where he'll sort of prove what he's been saying time and time again, that Mount Kenya region has left the Kenya Kwanza administration. And mind you, he's not only fronting candidates in Mount Kenya. I think we heard him today voicing his reservations in terms of what's going on in Magarini when it comes to the IEBC's officials' conduct. Talk to us about what it means for this united opposition principle.
So, Jesse, no doubt about it. By the way, Rigathi Gachagua began his political career and really to be in the limelight right on this desk, right on KTN News. The very first time that I noticed Rigathi Gachagua was on KTN News. He was running for MP. He was the brother of the governor. And Rigathi Gachagua is an articulate, annoying, aggressive, political animal. He has done a lot of damage to the government. He has done a lot of damage on the person of His Excellency the President, just in his manner of speaking, in his courage to expose the most sensitive, the heaviest of, things behind the curtain. And so he really is controlling the mountain. it is, for all intents and purposes, a foregone conclusion that the mountain left Kenya Kwanza. I believe the president himself knows that. The president is therefore foraging in Luo Nyanza, foraging in northeastern to kind of offset that deficit. And remember, Jesse, because we're here to do political analysis, the president initially had wanted to pick Kindiki as his DP. You remember, you guys covered that story for a long time. But there's a reason why he picked Gachagua, because the president, then deputy president, in a huge fight against, the 800-pound gorilla of politics, which is, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, he needed muscle. So he didn't pick Kindiki, he picked Gachagua. There's a reason he picked Gachagua. But then, Gachagua is also extremely unrefined, lacks finesse, lacks, the next level wit. And so this same aggression is what he brought into government that made it untenable. Even if you're elected to the president, you're still his deputy. You're not a co-president. You must not make the president's life hell. And you can just tell, if this is how Gachagua is in public, you can imagine how he is in private. And so DCP is going to be a thorn in the flesh. DCP will easily run away with 2-3, elections day after tomorrow. It would not be a surprise. Gachagua has been around. He worked for President Uhuru before.
Okay.
He has some money. He has, you could say, he has what Kalonzo Musyoka doesn't have. Yet Kalonzo is a much more senior politician. So when you talk about fire in the belly and the ability to put up, resistance and to get under the skin and to put up a fight. I mean, God forbid there's any allegations on rigging. I had this discussion the other day somewhere, and they said, Raila is the one who used to always throw in the towel, and now we don't have a Raila. So if Kenyans feel elections have been rigged, now we could really have a big problem, especially with somebody like Rigathi being at the forefront of opposition and inciting, people to the street. And so it's a very interesting thing, but anybody who tells you that Rigathi Gachagua is not a factor, anybody who tells you that Rigathi is irrelevant, is lying to you. And I think, especially some of these advisors, I was with one of the president's friends today in a golf club, and I said, what do you think the president, and he said, the president's problem is just the lack of advisors, that he doesn't have the right advisors. And so they're telling him things are perfect when things are not. So I'm sure somebody is telling him, Gachagua alienda, after 1 week he's irrelevant. It's a year later, Gachagua is so relevant and so problematic. Can you see how mishandling, advice can even derail a government?
Yeah, definitely.
Gachagua has actually grown politically and in relevance. If you look at the campaign of the last few days, you'll agree with me, your cameras are all over.
Yeah.
He's going door to door, walking on the streets, and people are literally stopping. Farmers, business people, hawkers. In a sense, they've built him, and that's unfortunate.
Interesting. Lenga, what do you make of the Mbeere North race? Because we've definitely seen the deputy president, Professor Kithure Kindiki, lead from the front. We've heard from the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Geoffrey Ruku, who was a previous member of parliament before he ascended to cabinet. And the heavy guns have been brought into this particular area, showing how high stakes it is for either the opposition or the government to bug this particular seat. What does it mean for Kindiki and that deputy president's position? If they happen to lose Mbeere North, come 2027, does the president have a reason enough to drop Kindiki and perhaps look elsewhere to try and bolster his numbers? What do you make of it?
I think from the word go, it was pretty wrong, the government's strategy on Mbeere, because they brought in Professor Kithure Kindiki to lead the campaigns in drumming up for the candidate from Mbeere. So number one, this candidate has a lot of scandals tied around them, fraudulent activities, corruption scandals, notices that EACC did polls for change of names, And, you know, all this panoply of issues, compromise, whatever candidate could be in a hotly contested by-election. Secondly, the person that is leading the campaigns in the region is somebody that got into the seat of deputy president as a consequence of the firing of Rigathi Gachagua. And then the same Rigathi Gachagua is now on the ground to take head-on with him. So perhaps I think for government side, they should have used a different person to be the face of their campaigns in Bere, so that they do not make it or fall into the trap of making it look like a duel between I am told they now call him the nominated deputy president and the impeached deputy president. So it has turned into that contest of the one who was chased and the one who got. So it then loses meaning of competitive politics in terms of a ruling party, and a ruling party that is actually government and has lots of people that could have been deployed to this action. So then that context area shifts from the candidates who are in the election, and the context falls heavily on the shoulders of Professor Kithure Kindiki and the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua. And now you drop down and then analyze the methodologies that are being used by the two politicians, the sitting deputy president and the impeached deputy president, so that we contextualize that contest and then try to see what does it portend for the outcome of the election in Bere. We have seen how aggressively Rigathi Gachagua has campaigned in Bere for his candidate, Newton Karish, and you have seen how he has personalized this contest. You've seen how he's walked door to door. You've seen how he has, provoked the sitting president, so that when the sitting president stands up to support his candidate, he first of all has to protect his image before Rigathi Gachagua and look like somebody who is being beaten or being stoned by unknown people. So he has to defend himself first. Then after defending himself and protecting himself, then now he tells the people about the candidate that he is supporting. See how the energy is being lost, while the energy on the other side of Rigathi Gachagua is just contained in who he is. We have seen categorically that the context in Bere North has already begun, creating a different person in the person of Professor Kithure Kindiki. Usually, he's not a man that would shout. Usually, he's not a man that would hurl insults. Usually, he's not a man that would be aggressive. But then he's being forced to be aggressive. But then how does it turn out? It turns out to look like more of a caricature of himself than the real man. So then I think a lot of premium is being lost in trying to make Kithure Kindiki's energy match up with Gashagua's energy. So then now back to the candidates.
Okay.
I think we have a candidate, Newton Karish, who has already been in the politics of Embu, and he has won a seat before. And the kind of sensitization that Rigathi Gachagua has made for him in terms of what IEBC would like to do to compromise his win, and creating that environment that this is the candidate to beat, and that is why government is doing everything possible to ensure that he doesn't win this election. So the people should wake up. And I think the new development or the new information that came up regarding the candidature of, is it Leonard or Leo, whichever we choose to go with, it has really compromised his stakes in the eyes of right-thinking members of the society, because now they do not know whether to confront his abilities to lead them or to focus on his past, which is now glaring in the public. So then I think it puts this context in a very hotly contested situation, and everybody has to drum it down to the wire. And that is why you see either part is not given chance. So maybe it's a matter of wait and see, but clearly you can see the fault lines on the government's candidature are beginning to show at the wrong time.
Okay, proper analysis there, Lenga. Let's just listen in to some of the sentiments shared by political leaders on the campaign trail. Let's begin with what was said during the Mbere by-election campaigns. And we definitely saw Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki fold his sleeves and get his hands dirty as he responded to various leaders, including Rigathi Gachagua. Listen in.
Watu ya Karabale mlinyoa Kasongo. Alikuwa ametuma ile mtu yake anaitwa Soprano. Alikuwa hapa.
Hauna hata heshima. Yaani unatusi profesa mzima. Mtu ako na heshima zake alafu unakuwa ngengengengengenge. Wewe Goliathi ni one time MP. Na uachane na mimi. Ukiendelea kunitusi. Wewe mzee, wewe nitakuvua nguo. Wewe nitakuweka aibu. Nitakuweka aibu. Mimi nimekuwa waziri wa usalama wa taifa, najua mambo mengi. Usicheze na mimi, nitakuvua nguo wewe.
Okay, well, politics is a dirty game, as you can hear. Let's shift focus to western part of Kenya. Malava constituency is equally a place of high stakes in the upcoming by-elections, and we've definitely seen high-octane politics during the campaign period. Here are some of the sentiments by leaders who are campaigning for either side of the political divide.
Waluya ndio maskini ya mwisho, wanapewa kazi mbaya mbaya kama watchman, kama maid, kama kuchimba kaburi, kuchota maji kwa matanga. Milango tatu inabeba heshima ya Mluya tarehe 27. Mlango wa Wakisa, mlango wa Kabaras na mlango wa Wabukusu.
Mimi nataka nimwambie mwaka wa 2027 bwana anatembea, tunakuletea candidate, we are coming for you.
Mluya sijui nani aliroga sisi. Mtu akikuja tu na kachamba chusi kama hii, unasikia mtu anasema tawe, unakuta Mluya ama wazee ati wanamuita wanamkalisha ati wewe ni kiongozi. Tupeane heshima kwa viongozi wetu. Viongozi hao ambao tuko nao.
Wamekuja hapa wanaambia watu wachezee dance kinandakwa, wanaambia penduka hivi. Mimi nakuuliza, wewe unaambia mwanaume mwenzako apenduke uone nini?
All right, various leaders in the campaign trail, and
convicted felon.
Well, he had to put that. Well, he appealed.
Yeah, but still, you know, he was in prison.
Interesting times we live in.
And he's
Let's
in the
talk
podium
about
talking
Malava.
to Kenyans. It's wrong.
Generally, what are the stakes at Malava? Because I'm seeing Musalia Mudavadi at the campaign trail. Moses
Very
Wetangula.
late in the day. Very late in the day. The leaders in Western, some of whom have very shaky political clout. So when you talk about Speaker Moses Wetangula, when you talk about former Vice President Musalia Mudavadi, son of Moses Mudavadi, you know, they're very shaky political clout.
But didn't they prove their worth in the 2022 general election?
It was a little
Delivering
worth.
Bungoma.
It was timely. It was a little worth, but it was little because they are not very significant. Now they're coming in very late in the day.
Yeah.
Why are they coming in late in the day? Western is a very complicated place. Western, in many ways, I'm avoiding using the word a farce. Western is a very complicated place. The Luya, the Abaluya have many sub-tribes. Maragoli, you know, the different, you know. By the way, Alenga is running in Vihiga for Member of Parliament, and I'm supporting him, and we really hope that when he gets elected, he doesn't change, you know, his mind about good governance.
Okay.
And so in Western, they are very fractured in general and very political, very loud. It's the same place people like Atwoli come from, Boni Halwale, you know, the firebrands. These are guys who, Governor Natembeya, George Natembeya, tough guys. And so these are not guys that you can just carry wholesale. These are guys that need convincing. In fact, you heard that convicted felon, Major Waluke, saying, how come a party like Tawe is formed, and soon there are people following it, and Wazes, etc. It's because it's bothering him how quickly that movement has grown. And so the problem, Jesse, has been that in Western, the president's PA, Farouk Kibet, has insisted on running the campaigns. And so the proud Western leaders said, okay, you want to run the campaigns? Sawa, you go and run the campaigns. So Farouk has been on the ground, conceivably with a lot of money, you know, minimal organization. You know, it's a pretty, it's what you call, you know, a half-witted almost, you know, approach to doing politics, so that people like Mudavadi are coming in basically with days to go to the vote. These are blunders and they're unfortunate. And if they lose Malava, which they probably will, these are some of the reasons: the disorganization,
Okay.
and also the, again, sour taste. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, that residents, you know, on the ground have, you know, towards government. The people like Didmas Barasa, you know, they could have been doing much more, but they also already do so much in terms of making the government, you know, look funny, become unpopular, you know, in terms of recklessness. You know, when you talk about leadership and responsibility, leadership and integrity, when you talk about if you're an MP in the president's party or you're a CS in the president's party, how do you actually help, you know, the president? How do you boost his image? How do you cause buy-in? And they do the opposite. I mean, you would agree with me, they absolutely, every time they speak, they chase people away. And so these are some of the prices that you will see is in places like Malava. And might I underscore once again that in Mount Kenya, some of the most problematic, stubborn counties, and I've been around doing campaigns, you know, in the past, Embu is one of them. So if there's a place where you can, you know, a place called Barimanti in Embu, Riakanao, Huko, you know, these are places where the people are, actually it's what Gashago used to call Sisi ni watoto ya Mau Mau. They are very, very, very difficult to placate.
So they don't toe party lines?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Because
I remember campaigning with Raila in Embu some years back. And we were just at a rally and the youth were pelting his helicopter with stones. And he was at a rally with a microphone. It was actually a very scary sight.
Yeah.
And they were just standing away, not listening to him. They were like, each chopper itoke hapa. Ni wabaya sana. They are very, very radical. So we can expect a lot of drama.
Okay.
Even politically.
Well, we hope there's no friction or push and pull in terms of violence. Yeah, hoping for peaceful elections. Alenga, since we now know that you have interest in Vihiga, tell us about the intricacies in Western Kenya, because some might argue that DAP Kenya is simply filling the gap that was left by ANC. There are some other parties that have emerged, DNA, just to mention a few, but they've really not taken hold of that particular region. And it seems that George Natembeya is a force to reckon with within the larger Western region. Talk to us about his influence and what it means for the Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula likes.
Is he in Viga, by the way?
Okay, unfortunately, we don't seem to have Alenga. Alenga, can you hear me now? We just wanted your take on the intricacies in Western Kenya, Malava by-election, and we've seen DAP Kenya sort of take the space that was left by ANC, which was dissolved and joined the ruling Kenya Kwanza administration. What do you make of the intricacies of this race in Western Kenya, briefly? Okay, unfortunately, the monkeys are hanging on the lines. Benji, you're the last man standing. So at the end of the day, is DAP filling the gap that was left by ANC? Is George Natembeya truly a force to reckon with, or is it simply political posturing?
You know, when Eugene Wamalwa called his party DAP, which is the name of a fertilizer, I actually thought it was a joke. And that's why I've been telling you, Jesse, we really, and that time he was defense minister. He was a whole defense CS under President Uhuru. There's a level of trickery and deception that is normalized in Kenyan politics where people feel like, hiyo ni siasa tu. This culture has even become more prevalent, under these handshakes on the late Raila Odinga, where he says clearly, we won. We have the biggest following. But then again, he's like, okay, so let's go and see what we can get. When he says, ata mkia ni nyama. The whole objectification of politics as something to eat. It has mainstreamed corruption. It has increased, crookedness. And you just wonder, how, DAP, when you call a party DAP, like how serious are you? But then now, because of the alliance that he's in with His Excellency Gachagua and Kalonzo, etc., DAP at best is going to chip a lot of support. It's a spoiling factor, if not win. And so ANC folded. That's how I was talking about the shaky ground politically that Mudavadi is on. But you would imagine that Mudavadi, given that he became a minister in 1989, when Russia was still the USSR, you would imagine that he would be the head boy of politics in Western. Instead, he is now running behind Governor Natembeya. So again, you can see, Jesse, that too many things are wrong with our politics. Up is down and down is up. And east is north, west is south.
And I have to ask, the sway factor of money, finances in this by-elections, because listening from the opposition side, they'll claim that the government has poured money, financed campaigns. We don't know the source of this money. But will that be a determining factor in terms of how people vote?
So, obviously, a lot of money is being poured. Yeah. That in itself is as well problematic. It's problematic because it's a lack of transparency. It's a lack of accountability. When you talk about, if I would challenge you to go and read, for example, the McCain-Feingold campaign laws from the US. I was there exactly during the time of making of that law, the McCain-Feingold laws. I think those are from 2000, 2001. You cannot just have unexplained money infiltrating campaigns and partaking in open voter bribery. That is what it is, voter bribery, voter manipulation, etc. Now, what the new philosophy has been is if they bring money, just take the money and eat the money and then vote your conscience. But now there's a next step, and this is what happens when evil meets evil. So what they're saying now is go in the booth, tick for us, take a picture, and then come and collect your payment. Now, if that's not outright thuggery, this is, again, some of these things are a blatant... Jesse, the only thing that we have to go to is not even the government as a country. I hope you understand that yourself. Yeah. It's not even the government. The last line of defense, which is why we talked about what the Standard Group is doing, it's really the Constitution of Kenya. Like this is the document that guarantees our livelihood, our life, our safety. And once you're just violating the code of conduct for the Standard Group, and you work at the Standard Group, you are threatening the existence of the country by openly violating the Constitution in that way. Just imagine having to have someone go in a booth, take a picture, and come to sell that picture for money, for 2,000 shillings, for 3,000 shillings. That can only mainstream drug dealers, killers, pillagers, and that way Kenya can never become Singapore. At best, it would be another Somalia. Interesting. And that indeed is unfortunate.
What's at stake, in 30 seconds, what's at stake for IEBC in terms of regaining public confidence and trust in how they conduct this election?
IEBC has had a lot of issues since the days of ECK. Ethakun, whatever his name is, I hope I've said it right. Yes. He knows what he needs to do.
Okay.
He knows that the credibility of Not just himself as chair, but the entire IEBC. You saw what happened with the Fuller Chebukati. He knows that's on the line. Yeah. And more than that, and it's a constitutional body, it's the IEBC must not engage in conduct that destabilizes the nation and puts the nation, in a sense, at war. So it's a tricky balance. It's a tough job, but hey, he wanted the job.
Okay.
Let him crucify himself.
Asante sana.
The English say, give a man a rope long enough to even hang himself. I hope you'll have me back and we can talk some more. It was really enjoyable. It was really enjoyable. And I enjoy talking to you guys, and I love what you guys do.
Asante sana.
You're very committed. Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Benji Ndolo joined us today in studio. He's a political commentator, seasoned by the way, equally joined by Alenga Torosted, who's a governance analyst. He joined us virtually. Appreciate his input as well. Well, the curtain is closing on the campaigns ahead of Thursday's by-election. In just about an hour or so, the campaigns will be finalizing and voters will be deciding on who exactly will represent them in various levels of government. My name is Jesse Rogers. Thank you so much for keeping it KTN. Trust us to bring you up to speed with the very latest developments playing out in the 24 electoral units. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.